Okay, what we're going to talk about today is withdrawal rates. So for some reason, I've been seeing this more and more often in some of the other guys that I watch with YouTube, and it's fair, it's fair. So I thought I would just cover a withdrawal rate. But first, let me start out. For those of you who are watching me for the first time, I go out, I just put my assets up right away, so just full disclosure. That's my assets at the beginning of the plan. This is the assets at the end of the plan. So you can kind of see, if you follow me, how things go. Okay, so what are withdrawal rates? Withdrawal rates are simply, hey, what rate am I withdrawing from my assets, my portfolio? So if I use Boldin, I also use Red Capital, but I use Boldin since they'll let me show it on the screen. So if you go into Insights and Retirement Withdrawals, you'll see it gives you your withdrawal rate. So I have a withdrawal rate of 6.3. So I mean, I'm guessing most people that watch this channel will have heard of the 4% rule by Bangin, and he's just modified, I think, to like either 4.5 or 5, something like that. But basically, the idea is there a withdrawal rate that you can essentially just take that percentage from your portfolio and be safe. And so I don't know, I use ChatGPT quite a bit. So I said, what is considered a good withdrawal rate? And I knew this was going to be the answer. It's no surprise. The 4% rule based on the Trinity study. And like I said, they bumped it up. I think they bumped it up higher recently. Um, so I don't know. So that's just a straight withdrawal rate. Now, and it's funny you should say, because I'm also going to talk about this. So I am just not a huge fan of a simple percentage. I think you're either gonna, in bad times, you're gonna take down too much, could be exposed sequence of returns. In good times, you may not take down enough and then die with a whole bunch of money. So I'm not a huge fan. And one of the answers to those feelings that I had with other people are the guardrail approach. So basically, the guardrail approach basically says you set up guardrails in your plan and where you're going to kind of trigger a change in behavior. So I heard a lot of times it's 20%. So if it's if your performance on in your portfolio is 20% below what you're expecting or 20% above then your withdrawal rate is, then you need to reduce your withdrawal rate. So and so that's what I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over. I'm not a fan, um, and I'm not educating anybody. I just kind of thought, you know what? I've been hearing a lot about it. How would I do it, and would I do it? So obviously, at first glance, somebody may look at this and go, "Wow, you have a 6.3% withdrawal rate. That seems high." And who knows? Maybe it is. Um, but we'll look. But that average 6.3 rate comes from a real plan. So not just some arbitrary number we pulled out. So my withdrawal rates are relatively low now. Um, next year it'll be 4.4 because my wife will still be working. At 62, she stops. So the withdrawal rate bumps up. Then we start saving. I actually, before that, I'm putting away some money for weddings. So it bumps up again a little bit. I mean, I already have money put away for weddings outside of this, but there's some additional money I want to put in. So my withdrawal rate goes up and it goes up then. And then all of a sudden it drops to 67 because I'm collecting Social Security. So at oh, and just so you know, at 62, my wife's actually gonna collect her pension and her Social Security. The idea being we're used to a certain level of income now, and that's gonna drop when she stops working. But the good news is it'll drop, and instead of dropping down here, it'll drop like here. Obviously I gotta start picking up healthcare at that point, but that's all in the plan. So there is this one jump, this one withdrawal rate jump here, which is primarily because I'm selling my house. I have another video on this, but for my long-term care plan, which I've published, for my long-term care plan, I'm basically moving into a facility that can go full independent living, like condo living, all the way to full assisted living. And so it has a high deposit, and then you essentially rent. And I have a video on that too, you can look for if you want it. So that's what this big jump is right here when we move into that long-term care facility. And then of course, my go-go years are primarily between 62 when she retires and 77. And then I expect us to slow down. So you see it starts slowing down. My withdrawal rate. It just is pretty substantial towards the end. Okay, so now just to go over this screen, it's kind of cool. It shows you withdrawal amounts. It's not where I go to do my withdrawal, but I'll do another video on that at the beginning of the year when I actually have to go out and do all my withdrawals. But it's still good to know. They show you how much your withdrawals are, and where you're going to take them from, and you can expand this. So that's kind of cool. It's a nice place to go. The only thing it doesn't show, and this is why it doesn't show me my money flows, like if I want to do Roth conversions and stuff like that, because technically that's a withdrawal from one place and adding to another, but that's okay. It is what it is. Okay, so let's just take a look real quick at the guardrail system, right? So this is how I understand the guardrail system. I just explained it, right? If you create a band above and below, and then when you breach that band, you change your spending by either a fixed amount, like an amount you've decided, or you could just reflect how your portfolio went up or down. So what I did is I went in here and I just said, all right, well let's just if I were to do it, what would it look like? So it would look like this. Remember, doing this is almost like not having a plan. So all the work you're doing at Boldin, it's almost like you don't need it. But I'm big on a plan. So this will be what I have now. Let's say I decide that a 5% withdrawal rate is safe. So in January of 2025, I would take out a 5% amount of that. That would leave me with this much left over. And then since I'm simulating a return for that year, what you would have to do so that at the end of the year, you would know what your return is. I would make a spreadsheet or something and then just put, hey, at the beginning of 2025, this is what I had. And then at the end, when I was determining my withdrawal rate for the next year, I would take a snapshot of all the numbers because it's from all over the place. It's all your stuff, and then find out what your return is. In this case, I'm simulating a 4% return, and therefore the amount at the end of this year was this. So I come up with a rail calculation, which is in order to get it to look like a percent, I do 1 minus, and basically all I'm doing is I'm taking my return rate and dividing it by my withdrawal rate, and then getting a percentage. So you'll see my return rate is minus 20%, which is in that guardrail that says I have to change my behavior. So what would I do in January 2026 based on this? Now, I'm kind of a purist. You guys have seen that. So I would say, listen, if your investments have hit that 20% mark, then you need to reduce your spending by 20% the following year. So that's what I did. So this is just taking this withdrawal rate. Let's see, we'll just do the formula. It's just taking this and multiplying it and reducing it by 20% because that's what I had the prior year. My rail calculation said I've lost 20% of my withdrawal rate because my portfolio hasn't performed. Okay, so I would withdraw that amount, and then now I'm going to simulate 2026. So let's say 2026 is a great year and I get 0.9%. I get a 9% return, which gives me this amount. Now my new rail calculation is, listen, I was withdrawing at 4%. I've done 1.25% more than that now. So that's a trigger on the upper bound that says, listen, I can start spending more now because my stuff is performing better than I thought. In the official rail system, they do down is up and up is down. But I just like to think of, hey, when the market performs and it goes up and my portfolio is doing better than my 20% up from my withdrawal rate, then I can spend more. And so what do? That's exactly what I do. I take this, I multiply it by, I add the multiplication of 1.25, right? So now I'm getting this, C20 times 1.25. Oh wait, why am I adding that? Now that I'm thinking about it, I shouldn't be adding that. 1.25%, it's 125%. So now instead of taking 0.4, I'm taking 125% of that. I'm adding, that's how it works. Just like I reduced this by my calculation, I'm adding this to my current calculation. So that gives me 0.9 because I'm adding 1.25 to this. So I'm getting 0.9% now. So I'm withdrawing 181,000. And that's year 2027, and there's my after withdrawal. Okay, that's how. And I'm not doing this to tell you guys how to do the rail. I'm doing this because I was just curious myself. How would I do the rail? I could never live like this. Like I can't live with this, like this just absolute, it's not arbitrary, but like 1 year I'm spending more, 1 year I'm spending less. I just need a lot more control of that. So how do I handle market changes? So the way I handle market changes is in the plan, right? So what I do, and this is one thing that is awesome about Boldin. Come on. Boldin gives you a must have and a must spend and a like to spend. So if you go into your recurring expenses, and you have to, this is the paid version. In order to do this, you have to have the paid version. It's worth it. That's like 150 bucks for a year. It's like nothing. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's compared to what is at risk. So if you look through here, you'll see you have a must spend and a like to spend. So what I do is I go through here and say, hey, what is stuff I really need? And then if I'm in a bad shape with, if I'm in a rough shape with the markets, or I think I'm going to have a bad year, what can I do? Now, most of my stuff is in miscellaneous because I have a big miscellaneous fund, so I could reduce that. But obviously, you could go through and do your own stuff. Like this is, I have a miscellaneous after 77. My must spend is 900 a month versus 1700 a month. And all that means is if the market went down, I'd really start keeping track of our spending on the miscellaneous front a little closer. I have car and gas, Uber, out to eat. Anyhow, it's not so much that you see what I'm doing to reduce it. It's just showing you what I do. And that is I reduce these spends. Now I have some spends. I have some margin in my account. I think I have a video on that where for my two emergency ones, one is for appliances, one is for the house. Once I hit 2 years of saving in that account, then I stop adding to it. So that builds in margin. And if I spend from it the following year, I just get it right back up to where it should be. So that also gives me margin for good and bad years. Okay. Now the biggest expense though that I would probably work with is if the markets went down, and conversely if the markets went up, is vacation. So what I did was instead of having one entry in my repeat expenses, it says I have my extra vacation fund for the next 15 years or my go-go years. What I do is I do each year because I think that makes it more realistic. Because if I'm trimming, like if the markets go bad, I'm not going to go for the next 15 years. I mean, unless there's 15 years of bad markets, who knows? I'm going to do it one at a time. I'm going to say, okay, um, I guess I'm going to have to, reduce 2027 by 10,000 bucks or something. So if I did that, remember my expense rate was, my withdrawal rate was like 6.3%. So I would probably in all likelihood just reduce this guy. And if I had to, I would keep reducing. I would say, listen, that wasn't enough. I'm going to have to reduce the next year too. Now, like I said, I have those margin accounts in there that I would probably hit first. As a matter of fact, when those margin accounts hit 2 years, I may even take them out. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I really shouldn't take them out because they're my margin accounts. But anyhow, that's what I would do. I would say, okay, we're going to do the 2027 vacation. Then I would look at my percent of success and I would look at my withdrawal rate. Now, how do I know? So, how do I know? I would go in here and I would say, hey, my withdrawal rate is 6.1 because I've reduced my expenses. But what I really need to do is come up here and say, go to must spend. So now, if the markets aren't doing well, if I look at the markets and they're not doing well, I'm going to go into my must spend mode. And you can see my retirement rate is a lot lower. It's like 4.7. How do I know when to start spending again? Well, when I see these rates go up, or when I see my percentage of success go up. Because granted, it says 99 now because everything's rosy and the markets are doing great. If the markets are doing bad, this would be one of my litmus tests, kind of like the canary in the mine, that hey, things aren't looking good. The market's hit bad enough to where it's impacting my Monte Carlo and it's impacting my withdrawal rate. How often? It's up to you. Um, so that's essentially how I would handle a downturn in the market. I would just adapt. I would just adjust my spending behavior and I would take that in the plan and I would change my plan to my plan. I would change, and then I would also change my spending behavior in real life as a result of that plan change. So that's kind of my take. I mean, like I said, I'm no financial advisor. I'm just kind of, as I'm living this retired life, I'm just kind of sharing it mainly from a financial perspective, other perspectives too. But like I said, I don't know. My end game is I just think life is a lot more complicated than just taking out 4% all the time, you know. And so, or even with the guardrails, I don't feel like I don't know. I just I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And I guess a lot of times a financial planner, well, not I don't know. I guess from what I hear, financial planners will manage this too, and that doesn't make me feel terribly comfortable either. Because now, whenever I want to make a big move, like, hey, Mr. Financial Planner, I noticed the markets have really been down last month. Am I okay? Or hey, Mr. Financial Planner, I noticed the markets are doing good. How much more can I spend? Or hey, I want to buy a new car. Am I okay with that? Like, I don't know. All these things that don't aren't handled when you just take a flat percent out and when you have to essentially call somebody all the time. So it's not that I don't think they're worth their money. For some people they are, but I would just like to know. I just think you can live your best retired life if you have a plan and you know what you can spend on the upside and the downside. Because like the way I keep my wife engaged in this retirement plan is when the market goes up, granted, I have to see that 98% or even maybe 90%. It's got to be consistent for 2 years before I start upping my vacation funds. But that's the first place I'm going to go. I'm going to make the wife happy, man. I'm going to go in, make that 20, 30 grand. And then I'm going to tell her that year, hey, hon, guess what? We're going to spend 30,000 this year on vacations instead of 20. And then I can tell you right away who's going to be liking that plan, my wife. And hey, she's happy, I'm happy. So, hey, have a great day. Again, I'm so appreciative for everybody watching. Hopefully there's some valuable information you get out of this. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was valuable. I don't know. Sometimes I get jealous of the other channels because they don't seem to put out some financial stuff. They just put out this real fuzzy stuff and everybody seems to eat it up. But that's not me. So appreciate it. Thanks for watching. And I'll talk to you again.